Today, let's look at the top 3 scents that I wore in January. Patrick here. I've got 3 scents for you as well as 1 bonus scent, just because in number 3 I did indeed get a tie. So let's get right into it. So I'll go from least worn to most worn. So tied in the 3rd spot, and funnily enough worn 3 times each, I've got Ahmad Al-Maghrabi Blue Oud as well as Reef 29. I'll get these on the strip in a second, but let's just talk a little bit about them. I would say the backbone is very Middle Eastern of both of these, but they do very different things. Blue Oud is going to be more of like, yeah, literally like a blue take on a woodsy ouding fragrance, but it still has, you know, some emphasis on different fruits, leather, cypress. But it is interesting, you know, when I first bought this, I didn't really realize how versatile it was going to be. I wear this to the office a lot. You could also still dress it up, go out with this one as well, and pushes through nicely. So yeah, you can use it in a lot of seasons. If you wanted to use it in hotter weather, you know, maybe just spray a little bit less. But yeah, works very well. The fruit, I don't think is really labeled as much other than bergamot, but due to the sourness of the bergamot, the leather nature, cypress, kind of gives me this sweet berry as well going on with all of those stronger, you know, those stronger foundational notes. But yeah, you definitely need to get your nose on this. Maybe it's not for everyone, honestly, but I like that, you know, they put that blue word emphasis in there to kind of state that while this is, you know, you still get a lot of versatility out of it. So I think you're in good hands if you go for this. And Reef 29 on the other hand is even more approachable, I would say. You know, getting a saffron, amber, and iris combination, that's a very simple no breakdown, as that's what Reef likes to do with their marketing and their no breakdown essentially. But you know, I'm sure there's a lot more going on in there. I know some people say it has the DNA somewhat akin to Baccarat Rouge, but I would say the actual materials used have to be somewhat different, because I don't really go as nose blind to it in comparison to something like Baccarat 540. So I would assume that the aroma chemicals used, you know, are just a little more, are a little less sensitive going nose blind to essentially. But yeah, very nice. For my nose, almost has kind of a blue vibe as well. Opening is more unique, but then you do kind of get the shower gel feel that's typically in a blue fragrance, but it's not really pushing too hard into that territory. I just get kind of whiffs of it. So it is interesting. Again, both Middle Eastern, but they do an everyday approach to the scent profiles. And yeah, they're really great. Both last at least 7 hours. Blue Oud probably a little longer, probably pushing 8+. But yeah, love the versatility on these. Let's go ahead and get them on paper as well real quick, and I'll just talk a little bit more about maybe some of the nuances that I can't remember off the top of my head. Man, even the blue oud in air is very strong. I can't even smell any of the Reef after doing that. I will say, yeah, this is one of the most satisfying leather notes I've smelled too, just because it's working nicely in tandem with everything else that's going on. Like initially you might think everything is being overpowered by leather, but I don't know, just the way that citrus works with some of that fruit nature with a little bit of sweetness, all of those working together just really tame everything and mellow it out in a way where, yeah, you can really wear it anytime. Absolutely great value too on both of these. Blue Oud picked it up for under 40, and I believe around 50 or so for Reef 29. Reef 29 is just so well blended, you know. Yeah, sure, it has a slight sweetness to it, but iris and saffron, they're kind of pushing through, but in a mellow way. So that's definitely why you can wear this all the time. You know, it's a unique scent, still somewhat maybe in the designer realm, but it's still gonna be tension grabbing for sure, just because it is something different. But it's done in a way where, yeah, this isn't gonna really offend anyone in most situations. I would. 3 wears for both of those at number 3. Let's get to the 2nd spot. All right, now we've got Nishane Saffron Colognese. This is such a classic. This will always likely be in my rotation. This comes in at 4 wears for the month. Funnily enough, there's another saffron fragrance on this list at number 2 with Saffron Colognese. Saffron is really much the backbone of this, but you do get a slight passion fruit in the opening. I don't know if I would per se detect that, you know, as the note implies, but there is some kind of fruitiness at least at the top. Ever so slight sourness or like slightly not ripe yet. So yeah, I could see how it's called passion fruit, but again, it's just an accord. So it is there. I think there's also grapefruit as well. That's more commonly used. So that sourness could be coming from grapefruit as well, but it's very slight. Just adds a touch of freshness in the opening. You also get a slight spice. There is a little pink pepper or some kind of pepper in there as well. And then again, there's also leather. The leather though is very different than the Blue Oud, I would say. Kind of smells like a more refined leather versus I get the rawness more so from the Blue Oud. Yeah, you know, both of these I think are approachable if you've been in the fragrance journey for a while and you just want something interesting. I don't think you'll be too thrown off by either of those. But as I always mention, get a sample if you can. That's always the most helpful, as we all smell things differently. The way it reacts on your skin is different, so a lot of stuff to take into account. But yeah, number 2, we got Saffron Colognese. I'll go and get this on the tester. Yeah, this one is super impressive. I think this is a great fragrance. I enjoy every aspect of it, from the top all the way to the dry down. People may say this is a little light for the winter months, but if you're in an office scenario, definitely you can wear this all year. Same thing, really appropriate to dress it up or down. I've worn this in more formal events, but also just very casual. And yes, definitely at work a lot. That's what I noticed about the list. A lot of these have a lot of wears just because they are more office friendly overall. Again, very well blended. Everything feels cohesive in the way that it's been perfumed. Let's see who the perfumer is. Looks like George Lee is the perfumer for this. I believe he's done a good number of Nishane fragrances. Oh yeah, no, he's done a lot of them. He's done Fan Your Flames, Wulong Cha, Hasivat. A lot of basically the top sellers, in the more well-known bottle, the square bottle that Nishane has. But yeah, this, the circular bottle for the Colognese line is very slept on, I feel like, considering you can get great deals on it too. Definitely under $100 for the full-size bottle, but for me, I got it from somebody else actually on Facebook, and I got it for $45, so that's pretty much a no-brainer. I don't know if I'll ever get a niche bottle that was pretty much all the way full at that price. I don't think I can beat that. Even a Mancera, I don't think I could get a Mancera or Montal unless it was like a partial for that price. So pretty impressive. Again, saffron is going to be the dominant notes, slight touch of a cleaner leather, and then citruses and fruitiness pushing at the top a little bit, just to give a nice balance. Again, very cohesive in its presentation, and yeah, works in any situation. I gotta say, it's always going to be in the collection. Very impressive. I need to try more of his work as well. I feel like I've been holding off on getting more Nishanes, but likely won't be anytime soon. But you know what? That's okay. I will enjoy my fragrance journey. No need to rush it. Get to that number 1 spot now. You know what? Sometimes the simplest things are just the most useful when it comes to fragrances. I have Hawas Cobra, which is going to be an interpretation of LV's Imagination. A lot of people say that they're kind of done with either the dupes or the original. It's been overplayed. It's been hyped to death. I could agree with that to an extent, but I often think about a lot of the people that this was designed for that aren't really part of the frag community, or just don't really have that social interaction aspect of fragrance. There's still a ton of people out there who are going to wear this just because they enjoy wearing it, and they, a lot of people are going to feel like this is the best DNA that LV has on the market as well. So even though it's been hyped a lot, I think there's still going to be a lot of people outside of the frag community who wear this, and this one comes in at 5 wears for me. But it makes sense. Again, a lot of it is pertaining to my everyday, being in an office a lot of the time. And, I really do like tea fragrances in general. So the way this tea fragrance is built, it's just so easy to wear and so inoffensive. I really like the Versace version in the Hawas line because you're getting equal performance at the very least as the original. And I like the twist that's been put on this. There's a heavy cinnamon that seems to be added, not like a sweet cinnamon, but a dry and spicy cinnamon. And it goes very well with the Neroli or Orange Blossom. I forgot which one, but essentially that seems to create more of a creaminess compared to the LV original. So yeah, it's interesting. It just has this slightly creamier nature, but the top is still very similar in the way it presents itself with citrus and ginger. And then the tea note is still pronounced there, probably not as accurate or realistic and not as upfront as some of the other inspirations or the original. But I think it's just nice, well-rounded, comes with that great performance as well. And yeah, it's just easy to throw on. You wear this anywhere. Absolutely this is a fragrance to dress up or down. Not gonna offend people in the office. With the Versace one in general, maybe slightly less on the sprays, unless you just you're an oversprayer, that's fine too. No judgment. I kind of switch up my spray routine depending on the situation. But yeah, you can't go wrong. I don't know. It's hilarious to me that this is actually my number 1 for the month, but I don't know. It just tells you something about yourself, right? Doing some kind of test like this. But yeah, let's get it on the tester. Talk about the profile a little bit more. Whew. Yeah, I don't know. It just has to be the mood that it evokes for me. It's just so uplifting. You know, ginger tea combination. Me being half Asian is part of it too. You know, like ginger tea that's very familiar in the DNA of like the culinary world. So that could be part of it. You know, maybe that's slight nostalgia for me. It doesn't necessarily smell like anything I've smelled in the past. I know a lot of people say this smells like a fancy hotel or like fancy soap. I mean, I guess, but smelled a lot of hotels and a lot of soap in my life. And this is still different than that. Like it's a fragrance, you know, like it was made with a brief, with a lot of intent. So I don't know. It's interesting that people say that. I guess that's a nice term to kind of round out the idea, but it's still gonna have a lot more nuance than that. But you know, that's what's impressive to me too. It comes off simple, yet still has complexity to an extent. And you know, I think that's a nice place to approach a fragrance like this. You're drawing people in with the uniqueness, but again, in most minds, I think they're gonna visualize this being worn, being wearable in so many situations. Maybe in a way too, the citrus tea combination gives kind of a minty vibe, at least in the Cobra version. So yeah, it's very much a cooling effect. And at least for me, I feel like that just helps me feel more at ease, you know, more calm, more confident. I definitely see why I gravitate towards this. And that's our number 1 with 5 wears for the month. That's honestly pretty good. You know, that's like a whole work week. So yeah, pretty good. I did have a lot of one-offs, of course, you know, within a whole 30-day, 31-day span. So keep in mind, you know, even though these are my top 3, technically 4, that there was a lot of fragrances, you know, I either wore a sample, like literally in a sample, a vial, or yeah, I just wore other fragrances one time. So you never know, I might explore those more in another month. But for now, yeah, these are the top 4. I'm excited to make this kind of video every month, honestly. It's kind of fun just to see how within season, within time of your life, things change. You know, for example, I'll be getting laid off in about a week. And, you know, I talked about how these are office friendly. These were my approach to my day-to-day. But again, that's going to change, you know, while I'm applying for jobs and such. So we will see what happens. We'll see what I transform into in February. And yeah, we'll see what goes on. But yeah, again, let me know your list. I'm excited to hear what you guys, you know, kind of look for in your fragrance rotation. Are you someone who's heavily into the collector realm? You know, so you only wear, you know, 1 fragrance each day, or even 2 each day, so you're only getting, you know, 1 or 2 wears out of those. Or, you know, you're on the smaller side of your collection and you get like 10 plus wears of a fragrance in a single month. So yeah, let me know. This was a fun video to make. I'll see you in another. Thanks, guys.